Today's event is the film screening of Timekeepers REHAVI, it is Assistant Professor Dr. Juan Castrillon's documentary film about music, and is one of our colleagues in very near future, hopefully. And he's a filmmaker, anthropologist, and ethnomusicologist, and this is a very new way of transferring the historical knowledge as well. And this is fairly new style that the ethnomusicologist or historian makes film. So I'm hoping to enjoy this very interesting work this evening. So have a nice watch.
Estambul, junio de 2016. Mi muy querida María, esta vez he tenido un tiempo bien difícil en Estambul. La situación aquí, aunque parece normal, ha generado muchas enemistades entre las personas con las que he trabajado años atrás. Y además, en medio de todos los disturbios y aceleres, se me perdió el reloj bonito que me habían regalado. De él solo me queda el recuerdo y la foto que me tomaste años atrás. Estar entre dos o más coordenadas culturales no es nada fácil. Lloro en silencio, tal y como lo hacen estas ostras derramadas sobre la calle, luego de una pelea entre dos vendedores en la parada de buses de taxi. Con amor, Juan.
cenneti. Etkin cenneti. Tamam. Türkiye cenneti. O zaman ne vardı? 92'ye 21. ayet demiş. Allah Allah. Bu ne kadar detaylıymış ya.
Sıkıntı yok mu bugüne kadar?
Yok yok. Bugün işte çektim adres aldım. Cuma'ya gideceğim. Baktım gibi saate bakıyorum yok.
Olacak tabii de.
Senin işler nasıl?
Abi hamdolsun, elhamdülillah. İyiyiz, uğraşıyoruz.
Selamünaleyküm.
Aleykümselam.
Bakalım.
Bu saat bir güzel saat. Evet, bu saatte arıza var. Bu saatimizi salı günüsü verebiliriz, teslim edebiliriz. Tamiratını yaparız.
Tamam.
Teşekkür ederim.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Hadi eyvallah.
İyi günler.
Abi yapmakta zaman istiyor. Denkleşmek çok zaman. Mesela muhallebi sürüyorsun 6 ay bekliyor. Sonra eziyorsun muhallebiyi bununla eziyorsun. Yumurta akı sürüyorsun. Tekrar eziyorsun. 1 sene bekliyor. Sonra bunun yüzeyine yazıyoruz. Yani hat sanatı çok zaman isteyen bir sanat. Öğrenmek için çok zaman çalışmak gerekiyor. Öğrenmesi çok uzun zaman alıyor. Yazarken de çok vakit alır. Çok yavaş yazılır. Hızlı olmaz bu. Bu çok ağır yazılır. Çok ağır, yavaş. Hızlı olursa güzel olmaz. Böyle aheste aheste.
Allah Allah aşkın elinden hay hay bilmem nereyim Allah Allah aşkın elinden. Daha da yavaş, daha da hızlı. Bu bize kalmış. Ama Türk musikisi demek ki yavaş icra edilir. Hani zikir meclislerinde birazcık daha böyle meclediğimiz zaman hızlanıyor. 26 birime bölünüyor. Bütün neylerde bu. İşte istersek 70 santim kız neyi olsun. O da 26 birime böleceğiz. Bu sefer birim miktarı küçülmüş oluyor.
Birimden kastım santim.
Birim olarak yani 26 birim üzerinden bakıyor. Yani santimi şöyle bakacağız. Şimdi diyelim ki bu 80 santim oldu. 80 bölü 26. 30.77 gibi. Bunu tam Batı enstrümanına göre ayarlarsak mesela Türk musikisindeki özel sesleri kaçırıyoruz. Mesela şu yani 4-5 yani akor cihazıyla bakıldığı zaman 4-5 milim kadar hatta belki daha fazla kaydırmak gerekebiliyor. O kadar kaydırmayacağız. Ortalamasını bulacağız. Çünkü özel sesleri alamazsınız bu sefer. Mesela Türk müziğinde mi normalde hafiften birazcık tizdir. Fa hafiften pestir. Aralıklar budur aslında Türk müziğinde. Ama Batı enstrümanına uyacağımız zaman tabii ki ona yakın bir sesler elde etmek için kaydırmaları yapıyoruz. Hiç kaydırma yapmasak çok daha hani aradaki sazlardaki uyumsuzluk daha net oluşuyor. Müdahale edebiliriz. Necdet Yaşar veya işte İhsan Özgen akordu çeker, şey yaparlarmış. O sesten giderlermiş. Yani akor çok Batı şeyindeki gibi çok böyle ketum bir şey yok aslında Türk müziğinde.
Hocam, peki zamanla müzik arasında bir ilişki var mı?
Zamanı belirleyen en önemli araç saattir. Geçmiş müzik teorisyenleri hem zamanla hem de saatle ilişki kurmuşlardır müzikle. Bu yazmaların içerisinde mesela Hollywood bir de saatlerle ilgili yani devirlerle ilgili örnekler vardır. Daima birini tamamlayan daire şeklindedir. Saat de böyle düşünülmüş, zaman da böyle düşünülmüştür. Bu ilk 15. yüzyıldan itibaren başlayan bu şekildeki bir anlatım, yani sabah vaktinde şu makamlarda müziğin dinlenmesi gerekir dediklerinde aşağı yukarı 17. yüzyıla kadar sürekli aynı şeyler yazılmıştır. Burada bir değişim söz konusu değildir. Ama 17. yüzyıldan sonra artık bir bilimde anlayış değişikliği, felsefede anlayış değişikliği olduğu için bu konu rafa kaldırılmış. Çok önemsenmemiştir. Rauf Yektar'da onun için bulamayız. Ama Muallim İsmail hakkında bir parça vardır. Zaman ve müzik arasındaki ilişkiyi anlatan parçalar bulabiliriz. Haşim Bey'de bulabiliriz. Haşim Bey de 19. yüzyılın ortalarında yaşamış yine bir müzik teorisyenidir. Yaklaşık 11. yüzyılda yaşamış. Yani Selçukluların Anadolu'ya doğru geldikleri, yayıldıkları bir dönemde Artuklu Beyliği kurulmuş. Ve orada Cezeri namı adıyla bilinen bir aynı zamanda müzisyen, aynı zamanda mekanikçi, mühendis yani şimdiki ifadeyle otomatik makineler yapan adam. Elimizdeki Muslim Hadith in Our World adlı kitapta da bir örneği var. The Elephant Clock diye. fil saati örneği. Bu 1001 icat adı altında bir sergi olmuştu. Orada canlandırılan, yani yeniden Cezeri'nin kitabına bakarak yeniden canlandırılan saatlerden bir tanesidir.
Cumhuriyet Osmanlı İmparatorluğu'nun devamında geldiği için Cumhuriyet'in idealleri biraz daha farklıydı. Daha teorik yöntemlerle hareket etti. Ya o bir, yani işte şu güncel Avrupa müziğinin bir devamı gibi bir anlayış. Ya da biraz eski müziklerin taklidi gibi. O da var. Kötü teknikle eski müziklerin devamı gibi, ama bu anlamda farklı bir şey yapma gayretini pek görmüyorum. Az sayıda besteci de var. Eski İstanbul denilen o coğrafi bölgede hakikaten ana meydanlarda modern, kozmopolit bir hayat yaşanıyor ve biraz da hızlı bir hayat, biraz da çarpık bir hayat yaşanıyor. Ama birkaç sokak ötede, aşağıdaki mahallelerde, hele deniz tarafına doğru indiğimizde bambaşka bir zaman, belki 19. yüzyıldan kalmışçasına ayrı bir zamanda, ayrı bir hayat, insanlar sakin, evlerinin kenarında uyukluyorlar, çocuklar bahçede, bir mahalle hayatı var, başka bir zamansal. Pencereden birileri, müzisyenler de var. Böyle ut kanun sesleri bile hatırlıyorum dolaşırken oralarda biri. Hatta birkaç sokak yukarısı bambaşka bir hayat. Bütün Avrupalı turistler, gayet kozmopolit bir hayat. Aşağıda daha durağan, daha dingin, daha sakin. Başka bir hayat. Hem hayat hem de zamansallık.
Vel asr innel insane lefî husr illellezîne âmenû ve âmilûs-sâlihâti ve tevâsav bil-hakkî ve tevâsav bis-sabr.
Selamünaleyküm.
Aleykümselam.
Benim saatim oldu. Hoş bulduk. Teşekkür ederim.
Saatiniz oldu. Saatinizi tamir ettim. Gayet güzel çalışıyor. Ben tasarrufumuzu kullanabiliriz. Eyvallah.
Eyvallah. Buyurun.
Teşekkür ederim. Allah bilir versin.
eğitimi düzenlemek çalışıyoruz da.
Bunu yapacak mısın?
Ben de eğitimin üzerine çalışıyorum.
Peki bir şey bulabildin mi?
Zaten aşağıya biraz var. Yok ya, anlatıyor. Senden geliyor mu?
Bir saat mi? Ses mi geliyor?
Evet evet, sesim gözüm. Duydun mu?
Yani eski zaten çalışmıyor.
Eski ama ben duydum. Eminim.
Peki sen duyuyorsan senin olsun artık.
Aldım evet. Bir sakin olun.
İyi kanka.
So, Juan, once again, welcome. We are very happy to host you at our university. I'll start with the moment I met you. I'll do as a short introduction. I picked Juan up in a bus station last month when he came for, and I saw him walking towards me with a kind of a what looked like an instrument, I couldn't tell, and which turned out to be a ney, and he was sharing his ney with him. And in our conversation, at some point, I asked him. He was telling me that I went to Turkey and I spent a couple of years there. And knowing that he was from Colombia and then eventually in Philadelphia, I was saying, like, what brought you to Turkey? And he said, the sound of ney. And that stuck with me. And I was like, wow. So I think I will not forget that, our first conversation about that. So I think we should begin by just, talking about your background for a while, like your education and your interests.
Thank you, Inal, for the introduction. So I have a BA in anthropology from University of Antioquia in Medellin. I did anthropology of music and my thesis was about the convergence of music education and Islamic mysticism in Istanbul. I conducted field work for that thesis, and that was what brought me to go beyond this first encounter with the sound of the name. I wanted to know more about what was around the production of sound, which is, of course, not only made possible by performers, but also possible by the way in which teachers are teaching students how to listen to the instruments they perform, and how this listening positionality is being informed by so many aspects that, of course, include a very interesting way of living through this spirituality that has to do with music, but also as a way of the personal transformation or like a personal alchemy that can be reflected on how people perform of musical instruments or how people listen to sounds. So after I did this thesis in anthropology that took 10 years, I applied to do my doctoral studies in the US. And I went there in 2014, and I graduated. I obtained my doctorate 2 years ago. So REHAVI comes from a period of my research in which I was planning to do a comparison between the aural worlds, or the worlds that are created sonically and perceived through listening, between shamans in the Colombian Amazon and dervishes in Anatolia. So I wanted to do this critical comparison in which these oral ontologies were made and were experienced or lived through current performers, but also music teachers. So REHAVI wanted to be one of these like scholarly achievements on my comparison. Then, because of different reasons, I ended up doing my dissertation on music in the Northwest Amazon, and I couldn't finish like the comparison. So it's very nice for me to screen this film here, because I think for me it's not the time to go back to that project and to develop, or at least to share it with all of you. So that's like my background, a background that has to do with anthropology, and also my doctorate and a PhD in ethnopsychology, in which I see media production as a way of developing critical thinking infrastructures in which the research topics can be presented and shown, but also discussed through multimodal formats like this film.
Well, it sounds like a very multidisciplinary work involved. I was interested by the fact that you were kind of drawing some parallels with clockmaking and Turkish music, and what could you explain to us what was the motivation behind this the documentary, the film that we just saw? How did the idea first occur to you that you wanted to make such a film? Was that a part of a project, or was it did it came out of like independently?
So initially, I wanted to write a paper on how music theorists in the 15th and 16th and 17th centuries were theorizing music or how were they thinking about sound. And in the manuscripts, and some of them are shown in the film, they were using clock-like drawings to put together the maqams or the scales, but also to present the rhythms. So instead of having a linear or a horizontal way of presenting all these music-related elements, they were using all these circles, all these spirals. So for me, it was really interesting because the way they were thinking about time progression or pitch progression was in this circular form. So I wanted to write a paper about how all these ways of theorizing what we hear or what is being produced by instruments have been changing historically. And when I was talking about this with my colleagues and some of my advisors, they said like, Juan, but what is the audience you want to reach with the paper? And then they said like, well, maybe the editors of the academic journal and maybe your peers are going to read it because of the specificity of the subject. And because I was so interested in sharing this paper, I said, well, I will need to turn into something else. So the project started as a paper, as an academic paper, and it became a film, a documentary film, in which all these things about the comparison between clocks and human beings that was developed by Turkish novelist Ahmet Tanpınar in his book, The Institute of Time, are also present in all this way Turkish music theorists were theorizing about sound. So I say maybe if I present this in a different modality, I think I can have multiple conversations and multiple audiences can see this. So yeah, it started being a paper. Yes.
Maybe at this point I will ask if there's any questions because I have many, but I'll try to see. Yeah. Yes, please.
I think I don't need it.
Because you are doing a streaming.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Okay. I just noticed, after you explained it, I just noticed that because when I saw the poster, I couldn't recognize you wrote Rahavi. You call it Rahab or Rahavi or Rahab, which is one of the melodic modes in the 12 modes of maqams of music. So it's very interesting. I mean, the naming is very interesting. So I just wanted to bring a point because at the beginning we saw, maybe I misunderstand it. At the beginning we saw a man working with numbers because, these circular shapes, I've never seen it in designing theories of music, but I'm more familiar with this kind of design in numerology, which was using for a special kind of writing spells or mysticism messages, spiritual messages. So which one was it? The old man we saw in the film, was he doing musical theories, in the form of circular, or was it a kind of mystical numerology?
Yes, it was, we call it abjad.
Yes, abjad, numerology, abjad.
Yes, he was.
Was he doing abjad?
Yes. He was making a habas,
Yeah.
So it's like he was drawing or assembling a talisman.
Yeah.
Right, using the Quran and all this numerology, and basically, well, not basically, but
is this numerology related to music as well?
Yes. So that's why I was so interested, because this way of presenting the maqams using the circles and the way in which music theorists were thinking about proportions follow pretty much many of those discussions in which the universe could be assembled in such a way that can become a melody in a form of a maqam that can be played in a specific moment of time to produce a specific effect in the body, understood from this cosmological order. This was also for music, this was for this prophetic medicine, as we call it, and for all this talisman making.
I'm so happy that you mentioned about the effect on it on body
Mhm.
and like therapy effects of it. But
Yes, yes.
how come you decide not to go into dance and effects of this melody therapy? Because in mysticism, and this is a very important thing. How come? And it is very tempting for a filmmaker because of its aesthetic,
Mhm.
visuality it can
Yeah,
offer
yeah,
to
yeah.
a film. How come you resist not to go to that, or you choose not to go to that?
I think I went when in the film we saw the watch.
The watch was dancing.
The watch was dancing, and it was like spinning in its way out of Istanbul because the watch was refused, right? So we have like an old watch migrant finding a place in which can be valued otherwise. So I would say that I was tempted and I was completely drawn on this way of doing things because of what I have been learning, right? So it's no way to escape when all this timekeeping or all these ways of atmosphere making, if we want, is part of the conversation, right? So we see, for instance, or we hear, for instance, the zikr and the ticking sound of the construction, like the never-ending construction in Istanbul. But you sense it when, or you feel it when the like the timing of the pace of the city. So you have so many rhythms working in a cosmic scale without necessarily being religious, but a rhythm that folds everything. People busy going to work or the traffic, so everything. And like the construction, like the crane, we saw the crane moving as if we were a watch. So I wanted to capture all these movements that again resemble the movement we see when we observe a watch, in which one part is moving in a different pace, right? So I was trying to getting closer to this way in which I have learning people in Anatolia, or all this old thought in Anatolia has been about time or timekeeping. Yeah.
Cute.
Sure. Yeah.
Another question?
Hi. Since you said that the watch represents like music, like the style of music not being appreciated and finding its way somewhere else, what is the meaning of the guy who fixes the clock? I forgot what the term is. What does he symbolize then?
Yes, that's a good question. He's holding a type of technical understanding of like setting timekeeping machines, which is different to say that he is setting the time, right? And I think that for us that watch the film together, the idea of the meaning of the music being rearranged is what is behind him as the person who is like organizing or setting or fixing the mechanism within the watch. Because in the film, the meaning of Turkish music is always modified as when people rearrange their watch, right? They are not making an operation on time, but their own devices for timekeeping. And usually we think that music has a fixed meaning, right? Especially Turkish music. And what I have seen here is that the music is getting many meanings or many evaluations as people take care of the music, right? So I wanted to emphasize circulation as a way to value time instead of having a fixed knowledge about what time is.
Thank you.
Sure.
Why does the old man then give the watch? Decide to. Why does he decide to leave the watch on the street? Does he no longer value the music after it has been fixed?
He has his own watch, right? So when he picks up the watch, well, I am not giving the final interpretation of the film, but he's taking care of the watch. He has his own watch, and he found a watch on the stairs on Friday, right after the listening the azan. It's very hard for some countries in Anatolia to take someone that is not yours and keep, especially on Friday when you listen the call of the azan, right? It's like when I came to Istanbul for the first time and I was asked to leave my shoes outside the house. I was from Medellin, and like, well, why do I need to leave my shoes out? I need to have it closer to me. Say, no one needs to take them. It's like, why? Similar to the watch. This person saw the watch. He has his own watch, and he took this watch to a path to be repaired. And after it was repaired, it returned the watch to its origin, but now was working, right? And he is giving a message. He's making a statement.
Okay, sorry, another question.
We are a large audience.
Why is it that the guy who picked it up didn't see value in it, and then the girl who picked it up heard something that her friend didn't hear anything?
But what is your take on that? Because I'm here to open the conversation, but not to explain the film. Because the film is now ours. Now we are trying to see. It's like music. What do you make?
I think the guys didn't like the new sound, and then it was appreciated by someone else.
Yes.
But it was.
You're right. You're right.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure. You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Juan, for this amazing film. As an Iranian, watching this film, where all our poetry is just infused with the name of Ney as like one of the most mystical instruments. It was really interesting for me to watch the film. But anyway, what I wanted to ask you is that because the Sovarabadar, or what is translated into the spiral music, is associated with Farabi. He was one of those people who really put effort in theorizing music and just finding a way to, transmit it to the next generations. And Farabi did a lot of, effort on that cross. Did you came across Farabi's, methods of theorizing the music? Or did you learn them? Because there are a lot of semitones in Eastern music, especially in Turkish music, Persian music. There are many semitones, and these are really hard to translate into modern music because we don't have those kind of intervals in Western music. Did you learn how the notation works in that method of Farabi?
Yes. So I came to Farabi's work also in my like original version of the paper, right? So I was like really learning about how music or sound or vibration or like the topic of their manuscripts were changing, right? So I was really interested in Farabi's work, but also seeing how its own work was understood and developed by music theorists who were living in Anatolia, right? So that was the initial subject of my work, right? At that time, maybe my colleagues were. I mean, I was developing this in Philadelphia, in my music department, and and and my colleagues were not necessarily experts on music theory produced in this part of the region, right? In which, as you mentioned, not only Turkish music but Iranian music and music that we nowadays call maqam music, without this nation-related titles. And that's pretty much something I wanted to work on. Right. So yes, I found this concept or this form of theorization, but I wanted to work with the methods of putting this knowledge graphically, or like the if you want to call it like the projection or the visualization of how to organize not only let's say vibrations or notes, because at that time the discussion was not about frequencies, right? It was about like the theorization about maqam was not numerically driven in a Western way, right?
More rhythmic, right?
Yes, yes. So I wanted to learn more about this cosmological diagrams because I wanted to know about this musical thought that was informed by these thinkers, right? And of course, you're right. The film is full of those references, right? In which the music is everything we hear, right? But everything we hear is not necessarily just music.
So while we were talking about music, I have a question of my own. We didn't really talk about the music that took place as a soundtrack separately, which we heard with the flute, and I guess it sounded something like harp, grand harp. Who was the composer, and did you know him or her beforehand? And was there any particular reason you chose to work with him?
Yes, I met Hassan Uçarsu when I was doing my fieldwork in Istanbul, and at that time, this was 2016. I was mostly focused on Farabi, many other theorists were studied by Eugenia Popescu. She was a Romanian musicologist who was translating many music theorists who wrote in Turkish, in Armenian, and in Greek, who were living in Istanbul at that time. So my focus was on that direction. But of course, I wanted to know more about more contemporary composers working in Istanbul. So I was suggested to interview Hasan Uçarsu, who also graduated from the same university I was doing my PhD, right? So he came to Philadelphia to work with under James Primož advice or mentorship, and I was like exposed to his music and the style, like the texture and the way in which he was working really like I was really interested in all these sounds that were not necessarily like similar to what we are used to hear in Turkish classical music. And he was working in a very important conservatory in Istanbul, so I decided to work with this music. And when I talked about the film with him, he said, there are two pieces. One is this, which is called Kids Without Work, or Unemployed Kids, and in Istanbul. And he's referring to Rumeli kids in Istanbul, who are often on the street. So he wanted to present them to, like their attunement in Istanbul, and I was really interested in his piece. So I decided to include his music in the in-betweens, the documentary look and the story, and the flow. So that's how I ended up using his music in the film. Yeah.
I think you just said just separated the film into two segments in your last sentence. You said documentary and story. We didn't talk about that one either. And I'm guessing that you used color to emphasize on those, which I found to be interesting. That it's like two things going in parallel. Documentary and narrative. So, in a way, you're also interested in narratives. I don't know the correct word, or maybe constructed narratives in order to tell a story. But you're using the documentary tools to also give us information, to be informative. Yes. Do we have any more questions? For fuck's sake.
Amelia. Yeah, I have a documentary film class. She's not here. With Alnase. Your stop motion was that like experimental aspect. Was that storytelling that, was that something he had seen in a documentary before? Or you just decided that you want to combine the information and this way of conveying the story to stop motion?
Yeah, the decision came from in the film. What I mean by this, I was shooting the film in 2016 when the attempted coup happened in Turkey. When the attempted coup happened in Turkey. And when I returned to Philadelphia, I had a film that was just like pulled apart for all this violence, and because of that reason, the film changed dramatically, and the final way in which I was able to resolve this tension was in the way you watch, right? So the film initially was about to end in Istanbul. Someone was going to pick up the watch because they take care of their traditions and things like that. But after what I saw, I said, I cannot do that to the film. And that's why I needed to find a way to animate the watch so that it can leave Istanbul. Right. So in that way, I was looking for cinematic techniques to do this. And that's when stop motion came to my idea, right? And that's also when you hear the sound of the name, right? And specifically a piece composed by Üçün Juselim, which says Uyan Eygözlerin Uyan, right? And then it's when the watch is animated and leaves.
Did you show it to someone like who is a professional filmmaker or something? Did you get any sort of feedback about combining the two? Like, did anyone like it or dislike it? Or I think is it like an acceptable way of making a documentary?
As we watch in the credits, I work with two assistant editors, and we were discussing the film. But I don't get what you mean by they like it or dislike it.
Sometimes, like when you make a film, when you show it to a professional, they say, "No, this is not objectively good." You know, were people you showed it to say that it was an acceptable way? Okay, I'm sorry. I'll ask my lecturer. It's okay. Acceptable. Okay.
She's trying to say that did you ever get criticized by the fact that you use
Well, all the time. Also like showing the film in Istanbul was different to show the film in the 12 film festivals I have been screening the film, right? So I think that we as creators need to be consistent about what we want to say or what we want the audience to see, right? And of course, it depends on our own training, how we are going to do that, right? And how and the techniques or the methods we use to achieve that message, right? So the film, like this film, even though it was shot in 2016, it took a couple of years of editing, proofreading, well, not proofreading, but editing and watching it multiple times, having feedback from colleagues, from filmmakers, but not only filmmakers. I also wanted feedback from people who were knowledgeable about the history of Turkish music, right? Because as Inal mentioned, this is some multimodal collaboration that is at the same time a piece of scholarship, but also it's a documentary, right? But it's not only a documentary, right? So when Inal said that it also has this pedagogical aspect of it, that's also important. But at the same time, this storytelling about the watch was also important, right? So I think that nowadays, as scholars, we are really challenged by developing a form of scholarship that can be appreciated in the language of the communities we work with. So as you noticed, most of the film is in Turkish because I did fieldwork in Istanbul. So originally I wanted to publish the paper in English. If I publish my paper in English, the people I work with in Istanbul won't be able to read it, right? So I want you to see all this multi-dimensional aspect of this scholarly work. And also, the film was published by the Society for Cultural Anthropology in a new media review, right? So after making the film, it was also evaluated through a peer review process, and it is finally published in the website of an academic organization as a piece of scholarship. Right? Yeah, it was published. It was published in 2007. 2021 was published by the Society for Cultural Anthropology. It was published. Oh, okay. No, this is published as a film within the website of the Society for Cultural Anthropology. So when this is very important. When I'm talking about published is because nowadays we are developing multimodal scholarship, right? In which this is not just a documentary. It's a piece of research that is presented in a multimodal form. Because of that, it goes through a peer review process of scholars who are going to evaluate if it can be published. And this is published as a film. And if you go to the website, sorry? Yes. So if you go to the website, that we'll be very happy to share with you, you will find 2 short essays that were written by the evaluators of the film. So as part of this evaluating process, I was not able to say a word about the film, but they were writing about the film. So in the publication, you can go to the website, access the film, and with English and Spanish captions. So it's in a trilingual version. And also the 2 essays that were written by the evaluators. So this is a new form of research and publication we are being fostering in the previous years, right? So I hope this because
I'm really excited about this type of research. It sounds really interesting. Oh yeah, I think we don't have any more questions. So, is there a head scratching? Yeah, so Juan, once again, thank you for sharing your work and your world with us. It was really interesting to see this very different cultures getting. For myself, I didn't knew about the circular diagrams that the Turkish music. So that was something that I need to research as well. Yeah, thank you. Thanks so much.
Well, that was not a bad shot, but this is not how it all started. I've always been dreaming of becoming a filmmaker. I believe that a good movie can make our world a better place. But I need to learn more. Life is like a video game. It's fun and it's challenging at the same time. Every accomplished mission leads to another one. Look at these harmonious moves. A perfect combination of mind and body, absolute freedom of self-expression. Art imitates life, and nature is the ultimate masterpiece. To design like a master, you must learn the basics and then go beyond. But how? So our journey began to this magical place, Cyprus. We found our voices. We heard each other's songs. We captured our moment, and we painted our lives. Not to mention the fun. We illuminated our future. We learned from the past. The craft and the knowledge came together to create art. There's a lot to discover and a lot to be done. We were taken by hand, one by one. The journey goes on, and the future is bright. The seeds we planted will give years of beautiful blossoms. So our dreams came to life, and life became like a dream. The magic is real, only if you believe. The journey we began finally came to an end. But it's time for a new start. Now, let's take another shot.
Ah!